Is that from the Cygnus loop, Scott? All those galaxies?
I think it's the deep field. I'm not sure. I'll have to look at the file again. It's mesmerizing.
Isn't it?
It is.
It should be the Hubble's deep field shot.
Maybe, yeah.
Mhm. There we go.
All planets is being rejected according to Chuck Lewis. Tyler. Hang on.
Well, hello everybody. This is Scott Roberts here from Explore Scientific, and this is the Explore Alliance live program of the OpenGOTO community. And this time we got something really special. We have Chuck Lewis, who is normally on the other side of this broadcast, sending me chats and interacting with us, but this time he wanted to give a special presentation. It's also his first time on our Global Star Party tonight. But he is someone that was one of the technical team for the Skylab project that you might remember. He is someone that is an amateur astronomer, so he did professional science, amateur science. So his program is called Big Science versus Little Science. And we're going to introduce him and put the spotlight on him. So let's give you the stage here. Let me get me off the stage here. Here we are. Chuck, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Great.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's cool. It's very cool. I like this. I like having people interact on our program. So it's
Well, I lurked on here for a number of months, and as part of the lurking, we get to answer neat questions and sometimes win neat prizes, and I won my share. So I figured it was time to give back a little bit. So
thank you.
Here we are.
Thank you.
So you want me to start?
Yeah, let's go ahead and get started. If you're going to share your screen down at the bottom of the Zoom window, there you go. I see it.
How's that look?
Looks real good.
Okay. So how did this all get started? Well, I just mentioned that I've been on lurking for a while and figured it was time to give back. And I've been only doing amateur astronomy recently for a few months. And occasionally people will say, well, Chuck, are you a newbie or an experienced astronomer? And my usual answer is I'm a newbie. I'm a rank newbie. But when I got thinking back on the past 50 years, I realized that I was involved in some astronomical events for a while, starting about 50 years ago with Skylab. And in the process of spending some time with you guys, the subject of big science versus little science came up a number of times, as well as the notion of how influential amateur astronomers can be. And I got thinking, I've got experience with both ends of that spectrum. So this is a little pitch that's kind of a tongue-in-cheek, fun look at big science meets small science, and it's subtitled What Some People Would Do for an Image. And I think you'll see why that subtitle is appropriate as we get along here. So as I mentioned, it's Skylab back in 1973 versus Chuck's barn door tracker from 2020. So here we go. In the red corner, we've got Skylab. There's the Skylab patch. And a little heads up there in a thumbnail in the blue corner is Chuck's barn door tracker. But we're going to start with Skylab and work chronologically through this. So setting the stage for Skylab back in the late 60s, Dr. Werner von Braun, who was the leader of the Marshall Space Flight Center where I worked, had envisioned a space station for a long time. And that had been in the back of his mind for quite a while. We were also about in the middle of the Apollo program, and there was a decision to cancel 3 of the lunar missions, and that left some extra hardware. And in the process of all of that, NASA realized they needed something to bridge the gap between Apollo and a permanent space station, which was going to have to wait until the shuttle program was off and running. And then we had a period of active sun. So that kind of set the stage for the science that would be done on Skylab. And another uncertainty at that point was EVA and long duration space flight. It was an unproven capability. There had been some challenging EVAs on some of the Gemini missions. Nobody was absolutely sure what could be done by the crew with an extravehicular activity, spacewalk as we've known them to be. And so there were a lot of studies underway to define a gap filler. There was an Apollo applications program at NASA, the Manned Orbiting Laboratory, I think it was the Air Force, a number of other ones. And that went on for a while, but the result of it, after we're going to look at von Braun's sketches here, just to put this in historical perspective a little bit. This was von Braun's idea of a Saturn V conversion into a space station using an S2 stage. That's the second stage of the Saturn rocket. It turned out we used the S4B, which was the third stage, but that gives you a little feel for real sketches, not just computer generated stuff. So back to the result of all those intermediate studies. We did have the used parts left over. Skylab consolidated the results of the Apollo applications program, MOL, and a bunch of other studies. It would ultimately validate the efficacy of EVAs. It would evaluate living and working in space. It would establish the scientist-astronaut approach, where real scientists would be doing real science in orbit. And that's the last bullet. It would do real science in orbit. Primarily solar astronomy, biomedical and life sciences experiments, and Earth observations. So after a few years, magic happens. Magic always comes through. Here's the Skylab cluster. You can see the spare S4B stage over here, which was the living and working area for the crew. There was a spare lunar excursion module that had been filled up with a bunch of solar experiments over here. An airlock module and a multiple docking adapter in this space right here. And this is the command and service module. This is where the crew would come up and dock to the multiple docking adapter. So this is called the Skylab Cluster, 12,700 cubic feet, overall length 117 feet. It was a pretty big blivet to get up into space. You might be wondering how it got into space when that solar telescope was off to the side. Well, it wasn't when it was launched. This is the solar telescope housed inside the extra lunar excursion module. At launch, it was in line with the axis of the rocket. And after it got on orbit, it was winched over around these trunnions right here I'm showing until it was at right angles, and then it was ready for some solar observations. So just to kind of give you a feel for how this worked in perspective, this is a quote from an article by John Eddy called Skylab Optics, an introduction. It's a little hard to read, so I'll read it for you. For the first time in space, there were few constraints on experiment weight, power, telemetry, or film storage. For the first time, solar astronomers were able to take advantage of photographic emulsions in long-term observational patrols from space. For the first time, repairs and modifications were made on experiment equipment during the operational phase within Skylab and outside it during spacewalks by astronaut crews. In this way, the first crew salvaged the entire mission. We'll have a little more about that later. From there on, the three crews carried out adjustments, brought up replacement parts and installed them, tinkered, improvised, made changes, and generally worked as scientists do in a ground-based laboratory. Their effectiveness was beyond imagination. So it's nice words from John Eddy. So that kind of shows Skylab as a great success, but it almost didn't make it into orbit. There was a near disaster. You see this little picture on the left. It looks a little funny. It seems to be missing one solar array. That got ripped off part way up during launch. And a lot of us spent an awful lot of time getting ready to repair that and make accommodations for it. It's a huge story, and it's another story for another day. But it does point out the amount of effort ultimately that went into this program. So let's look at the Skylab missions for a little bit. That first launch without the crew, of course, was to launch the entire cluster on a Saturn V. launched in 1973 on May the 14th. I'll let you just look at these 3 manned missions, 3 crewmen in each. Each one of them had a scientist astronaut. We had a backup crew, and Scott, one of the backup crewmen was Story Musgrave, your buddy.
Oh, wow.
And
Cool.
Story and Rusty Schweikart were probably the 2 guys that we spent the most time with. In fact, I've got a picture of my daughter zonked out on Musgrave's lap in our house after eating a pizza. She still, to this day, she considers Musgrave her astronaut.
I can understand why.
So, but that's typical of Story. All right. So what about the experiments that were part of the Apollo telescope mount? That's the designation that was given to the lunar excursion module filled with telescopes. So there were 8 major solar instruments. They were mounted on a cruciform-shaped optical bench inside the LEM. There were 2 X-ray telescopes, an XUV spectroheliograph, an ultraviolet spectroheliometer, an ultraviolet spectrograph, visible light coronagraph, and 2 H-alpha telescopes. And just a little bit on how those things were arranged in the LEM. You see the framework of the lunar excursion module over here. The telescope, I guess you'd have to call it an OTA at this point with all those 8 instruments on it. In the middle of the LEM structure on some small gimbals, but also able to be rotated. The dark pictures, the dark images that you see over here are gyros, but they're not the typical gyros we're used to thinking of, where the gyro presents a data output. These were actual control moment gyros. They weighed a lot. They were spinning fast, and you could use them to actually torque the whole cluster in space. So you'd put a little force on the axis, the axle of the CMGs, and they provided not only stability but some rough pointing control as well. There were 3 of them. Only really needed 2. The third one was there as a redundant one. You can see down here there's a star tracker. This is all just what we're all used to, right? We've got pointing, and we've got tracking. We've got the OTA aimed at the sun's surface. Workshop for the crew, and all that other stuff. And let's go on to some numbers: system pointing, accuracy, and stability. 2.5 arc seconds in X and Y direction, 10 arc seconds around the Z-axis. The Z-axis was the solar, the line between the sun and the telescopes. 7.5 arc seconds over 15 minutes. And the pointing accuracy of the entire cluster was 6 arc minutes for X and Y, and 10 for Z. So here's a picture of the optical bench before it was dropped into the lunar excursion module. And here's another one as it's going in. You see it's wrapped with thermal protective stuff. And right here in this open bay is sort of a doorway where the crew actually did the exchange of film canisters. Remember, this was film. It wasn't CMOS or CCD. It was Scott and I were talking about this a little earlier, and realized that the film has reciprocity failure. You can double the exposure and you won't get double the image. That meant that it was a lot more difficult to get decent images back then. But it also meant that the crew had to remove and replace those film cassettes several times during the mission, at least once during each of the manned missions, and I think one of them did it twice. A lot of film had to be retrieved. So that's what my job was. I was part of a small group that developed a conceptual design for the what we called the EVA trail. How does the crew get out of the out of the habitable area, move around on handrails over to where they could retrieve the film, do so safely and without expending any more energy than necessary. So all of that effort included the handrails, safety aspects, umbilical management, visibility, a lot of latches and catches. Each of those cameras had to have its own particular latching mechanism. They were all a little bit different. And those had to be optimized for use by the crew in a spacesuit. Not an easy task, but it was sure a lot of fun. So here's another picture of the LEM with the experiment canister in it, and this is another shot of the opening where the crew does its film exchange. That door is open, and that's kind of typical of how the crew would exchange the film. Here's a set of handrails. I don't think this particular mock-up shows the actual handrail that lets him get over into that area, but there's a set of foot restraints down there at the bottom. And if we look at the sun end, there were four experiments that had access through that opening, and two of them from the sun end. We call this the sun end. It's the objective end of the telescope. And I never realized until I started putting this pitch together, that looks like a happy telescope, doesn't it? You see a little grin and a wink on that. I never realized it until I put this together. It's kind of cool. Here's a little zoom in on that. And in this particular case, you can see where the foot restraints are. You can see the handrail coming up here. Temporary stowage for the film canisters that were being brought up. There's another set of temporary stowage over here. Handhold for the crew can get a hold of it. And if you look carefully, there's a door handle right there and another one right there. And those doors opened up, allowing access for the crew. This is probably my favorite picture of Skylab. This is Owen Garriott.
Yeah.
Rounding the edge of that sun shield. And we've got two fresh film canisters on the way out to him on a what was called a storable tubular extendable member, made by the same company that made the Canadian company that also made the arm, the space station and shuttle arm. Great company. Mm-hmm. We used a lot of tools to get this job done. One of them, probably the most useful one, was a neutral buoyancy tank at Marshall, 75 feet deep, 40 feet in diameter, with a full scale mock-up of the whole cluster there. You can see a suited subject here making his way along the handrails down into that area where he can retrieve the film. A couple other scuba divers on it. This might be me down here, but I'm not absolutely certain. It could be. We spent a lot of time doing that. We also did some 1G testing. This is a test where we needed to make sure that the bright sun was not so bright that the crew could not see the entry arrangement for those film cassettes. And we needed to make sure they could see the legends and the alignment marks and all of that sort of stuff. And of course, we used the KC-135 zero-G aircraft primarily for testing the latches and catches with fairly high fidelity mock-ups before we mounted them to the flight unit. Well, here's Ed Gibson, one of the scientist astronauts. That's the Apollo telescope mount control panel. It's huge. There was a massive effort to work on the human interface characteristics of that control panel. Spent a lot of time doing that. Not anything I did, but some of the guys I worked with did that a lot. And here are some results from Skylab. There's just no way to put all of them on there. Here's some X-ray images. There's ultraviolet, bright spots, and some more X-ray. Some loops in ultraviolet, some solar prominences, another one from the white light coronagraph. And if you remember, Dr. Giacconi, who shared the 2002 Nobel Prize for Physics, did so based on his X-ray observations that started on Skylab, and that really kind of clicked off the whole field of X-ray astronomy. So the significance of Skylab as big science was guaranteed. So now we're gonna skip forward to 2020. This is tiny science now, and set the stage for this. I bought a new old camera, used camera, back in the spring, and I decided it needed a new tripod. After I got the tripod, my brother Paul sent a 60 millimeter Tasco. He says it needs to go on your new tripod. Have fun. Well, he didn't realize how big an itch he was scratching, because I had been interested in astronomy since back when I was working on Skylab, and actually put together a 6-inch reflector on a board that lasted about long enough to realize that I had to go to work and couldn't keep doing anything on it, but now I can. So Paul's telescope raised questions about my old eyes and versus doing astrophotography. And so the next question was, how cheaply can one do astrophotography? My eyes are not going to serve me very well for visual astronomy anymore. And the answer to cheap astrophotography starts with a barn door tracker and a DSLR. And so this was my quest back in the spring. Here's the barn door tracker. Looking at another view of it, you can see an Arduino mini embedded computer that's driving a stepper motor that's underneath here. You can see the small gear that the stepper motor is driving. Larger gear, pretty typical barn door tracker using a curved 1032 threaded rod. And this is a voltage regulator off on the side. And it was really pretty cheap. I had the Arduino kit. It came with the stepper motor and the driver. I had junk box aluminum chassis. All this other stuff came from the junk box. I think I spent $8 on the threaded rod, $12 on plastic gears from the hobby shop. Piano hinge. Most expensive thing was the ball mount for the camera, and a little perf board for the Arduino to put a fine adjustment for side rail tracking. So my total was about $60 or so. If you had to buy the Arduino from scratch, you'd probably spend somewhere around $100. So here are the results. This is a pretty crummy looking galaxy, but I sure like the stars. Those stars were from a barn door tracker, 60-second subs, 12 lights, nine darks. It's by today's standards and what we've been seeing on this program, this is a pretty crummy image, but it sure meant a lot to me. And it did show me that you could do something without spending a whole lot of money. That Tokina lens was one that you can probably pick up for 15 or 20 bucks on eBay, something like that. 210 millimeters, and when you multiply that by the sensor size of the Nikon, that's about 300 millimeters. So that's a huge amount of cropping to get even that little image of M101. So now let's think about big versus little. What's common to both of these approaches? Well, I think you'll all agree with this. The allure of new knowledge and the whole idea of turning the page to find something new. I think we all share that. And we all share that within a larger vision, looking at science and technology in its historical context. And one of the most important things I think in what we do is that we've got to buy into possibilities. Those possibilities bubble up in our minds from time to time. We've got to be able to let them through and buy in and follow up. And of course, we've all talked about this a lot, the infatuation for the process, the journey. So what's different now? Let's look at the differences between the two. As far as overall perception, when you're doing big science, there's always the feeling that this is bigger than any of us, and you have this "I'm not worthy" feeling to work on this program. And when you're doing little science like we're doing now, it's a little different. You have kind of an "I can do this" feeling, which is great. Looking at the budget, $2.2 billion for Skylab, and in my case, $62 for a little barn door tracker. Skylab needed a marching army to pull off, and most of us need one person, maybe two, and a lot of family support, which we're all thankful for. Big science is measured in years, and what we do is, of course, measured in weeks, sometimes days. Now, what's the risk? With Skylab, the risk was huge. It was NASA's very existence was a function of how well Skylab did, and we darn near blew it on that one. And we can talk about that later at some point. And the only risk to me and to most of us, I think, is a little personal pride. What about the results? Well, Skylab results were game-changing. You see my tiny results. They were insignificant to anyone but me, but there's a huge upside potential. In the case of Skylab, the thing that followed was Hubbell, which followed in the footsteps of Skylab. All of the crew activity concerns relative to long duration and actually doing science in orbit and extravehicular activity. Skylab set the stage for what Hubbell was able to do, particularly when you think about the in-orbit repair capability that we did build into Hubbell later. And of course, when it comes to our amateur science, there's a huge upside potential for us, especially with everything that's going on today. There's my upside potential. There's an XOS2 with that wonderful AR-102 that I won for answering a question, first to answer the question. I love that. It's out there in the back deck right now, trying to image some sun shots, but the sun's down behind the trees, so I don't think I'm going to get any of those tonight. So after all of that, 50 years worth of big science and small science, how do I feel about that? How should any of us feel about that? Well, about the time I was taking a look at my my M101 image, a tweet came up on Twitter. It's kind of a perennial one, a shot of Hubbell with all of its magnificent images. And I got thinking about that, and I retweeted that tweet, and here it is. I'll read it for you. This was on April 27th. I'm putting together a cheapo barn door astro tracker for my new DSLR, hoping for a barely recognizable nebula after shooting, stacking, and processing. But why, after Hubbell's spectacular images, do we bother with all that? Because we can, and because doing science still matters. Emphasis on the doing.
Yes.
And with that, back to you, Scott.
Oh, that was wonderful. That was wonderful. Comments from the chat. One of them is, okay, this is the most interesting presentation we've seen in a while. This is from Aaron Thompson. Yep, Tim Meyer says, no matter what an image looks like, you can still take pride in that it's yours. Gary Palmer, the UK, is watching. He says, I have a book that was written for the astronauts on Skylab called Quiet Sun.
That was Ed Gibson's book.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Interesting. People are a little bit surprised we came on a little early today, but we wanted to have Chuck Lewis participate with us. So Kelly Letourneau says, cool that the guest worked with the Skylab experiment. Love looking at pictures of whilst growing up and reading National Geographic. You know, Skylab was such an amazing thing. I did see Skylab when I was a teenager. You know, we would watch for the orbit, and I remember, you know, I was living in Oceanside at this time, and going, you know, found out what time it was supposed to come overhead and stuff. It was on the news, and I went outside and saw this brilliant blue, you know, satellite go overhead. You know, it was just amazing. So I guess that was reflection off the solar panels or something, but I remember the color of it, and I was really taken back, you know, and thinking, wow, there's guys up there working in this, you know, this laboratory that's floating in space, and it made me really think about the, you know, we have finally realized, you know, all that science fiction of having space stations out there and everything, and now we finally have one, you know, so that was totally cool. And I think that we probably learned a lot from Skylab, and it's probably one of the reasons why we have the International Space Station today.
Yeah, it's a little underappreciated, but it's being being more appreciated recently. There are a lot of people looking back historically, and there's a lot of stuff coming out on Skylab.
Yeah,
It's great. It's great to see, because it really did. It was a game changer.
that's awesome. Chuck, thank you so much. It was a real honor to have you on today.
Welcome.
You're going to be on the Global Star Party tonight, so we're looking forward to having you on there as well. And so it's going to be fun. So at this point, we're going to move over to Tyler Bowman to learn more about what's going on in customer service, tech support, and the OpenGOTO community. Chuck, thank you very much, and we will see you later on tonight, okay? So let's see. Here we go. Let's give you the stage here. Tyler, how are you?
I'm good, and how are you, sir?
Good. Was it a busy day today in customer service? Or?
It was crazy today. It's crazy. Got a lot of good things done that was accomplished today. A couple things to report. Cloudy nights. There was a post a lady made about the PMC-8 and the G11, how well she loves it. She says the mount literally disappears with the 127 FCD 100 on there.
Oh, that's what
That was Jennifer. That was Jennifer Selly.
That's what you want. You want the, you know, you want to know the equipment so well. You want the equipment to perform so well that it does disappear. You know, you can concentrate on your, you know, what's at hand. And if you're doing astrophotography, you know, there's so much more to think about.
Yeah.
Rather than, is this working right, or is that working correctly? So.
And on YouTube, there were some recommendations that we do a collimation video, which that's in the process.
Okay.
That will be done probably in the next couple of weeks. We shot another Explore First Light video. We got that done.
Okay.
Do some experimentation on that.
You're gonna have to give me those files, and we'll put them up on the show and highlight them. So let you comment on them.
No, I lived it.
Okay. Anything else going on today?
Not really. I mean, the Reddit's pretty quiet.
Okay.
Me, Jerry, and a gentleman named Dave Campbell wrote up a little. Everybody was having a lot of issues with hooking up with Stellarium with the PMC-8.
Oh, right.
So we've wrote down, and I believe I posted it. I'll have to double check to make sure that it went through how a step-by-step process using ASCOM with Stellarium to get it up and running so you can control it.
Okay.
So
Got the guy up and running, huh?
got the guy up and running.
Awesome. That's what matters. So great.
That's it.
That's
me.
it, huh? Well,
It's customer service right there.
that's customer service. Customer service in a nutshell, right there. Anyhow, thanks, Tyler. We'll
You're
see
welcome.
you tomorrow, okay? And bring one of your first light videos with you, okay?
All right, I will.
Sounds good, man.
All right, y'all take care.
Yep, thanks.
Bye-bye.
All right. And okay, so
Down to just two.
just two. Yeah. We're gonna have a heck of a lot more people on tonight. We've got
Yeah.
huge. I'll talk a little bit about Global Star Party tonight. We're starting. This Star Party is starting at 8 p.m. Okay, which I think we started the last Star Party. It was a European version, so that started at 4. So this is our first 8 p.m. Star Party. It's the 12th Global Star Party. And we start off with David Levy giving a talk as he normally does. I'm hoping he reads some more Robert Frost poetry because that's going to be totally cool. Kelly Beatty is going to give another installment of his State of Astronomy talk, which has just been really well received. And it's really interesting to hear Kelly Beatty tell it because few people have been able to have been privy to the all the exposure of amateur astronomy as he has through Sky and Telescope magazine over all these decades. So totally cool. Living the Stars will give a talk about I think it's about planet Earth tonight. So that is, a lot of people don't think of themselves being on planet Earth much, but
Do we know much about it?
Actually, they don't.
Do we know much about the planet Earth?
There's still
Pluto?
known about Earth that even though we're standing on it, we're diving in it, we're flying through it, we're building on it, there's still so much they don't know. Marcello Souza comes up after her, and Marcello is this guy is so creative, okay? He created a drive-in for science. Okay, so you think of a movie drive-in and everything. So the dude created like this gate, okay, that went over a shopping mall parking lot. Okay, and it had this big sign. It looked really retro too. It looked like something from the 50s. Had this, sign. It said movie drive-in Scientifico or something like that in Brazil. And so the parking lot filled up with cars. They were able to broadcast into, Marcello will tell you how he did it, but I think he was able to broadcast over their radio, radios in their cars. So I'm not sure of that, but we'll let Marcello talk more about it. But still a guy that never stops doing educational outreach. He had telescopes out there and everything, so during a time of COVID, especially, Brazil is having as much trouble as the United States is with this. So, to get this accomplished and to get people engaged was really a very, very cool thing. We're hoping that Dustin Gibson joins us for a little bit from OPT. We will be broadcasting on the Clear Skies Network, which is really good. Stuart Parkerson from Astronomy Technology Today is expected to join us as well. Mike Simmons is going to start his another installment. He kind of gave a presentation before on the last Star Party, but he's got this new series called the One Sky Chronicles, and it's stories about global astronomy, stuff he's experienced personally, experiences and stories from all over the world of people, looking up at the sky and, the unifying effect of all of that. So it's very cool. Carol Orge, president of the Astronomical League, is going to join us also in this first segment, and he'll read our door prize questions. So you're going to want to be there for that. Then we're going to after that, we'll take a 10-minute break, and then I'm blocking the program into different sections. So next we'd come up the art and poetry section. And so Kelsey Poore from Nova Space Galleries is supposed to join us once again. A woman, her name is Nadine Frosch. Nadine told me a story of, I won't go into the personal details of this, but she faced a very big hardship in her life. And it was a view through a telescope and seeing Saturn that gave her a new perspective on life and really gave her just lifted her spirits in ways that she never imagined. So she wrote a poem called "What's My Saturn," and you're going to want to listen to it because it's beautiful. Mike Simmons once again joins us for this art and poetry section because of all of his work with artists and poets and people through his interaction with Astronomers Without Borders. I'm sure that maybe the World at Night photography project will come into this as well. Very cool, and that's with Mike Simmons, called Visions of Space. We'll break again, and then we go into, I'm thinking it's going to be about 10:25 p.m. Central by this time. This part is for all of us that are gearheads, okay? All of us that want to see live imaging happen, to hear what the astrophotographers are doing, to see live image processing. And so that will go on. We'll have 10-minute discussions with each of them and let them show their works. And then we'll go to another break, and then there'll be an open panel. And all the people that are still with us can have discussions. If you're a guest and you've joined with us at that time, you can share your screen, and interact with the astronomers and other people that will be on that panel discussion. And we'll just run as long as it goes, and then let it die a natural death.
Yeah, right.
As star parties often do. So,
Right. All the stragglers at the end
right.
hanging out.
So let's see. We have, Jerry, we got a number of people watching here. Kelly Letourneau, Dusty Haskins. Dusty, I meant to call you today. I will call you after this show, okay? Shailendra Sharma, who's going to be at the Star Party tonight, saying hello. Richard Grace, who's going to be on the Star Party tonight, is saying hello. Jeff Wise is there. Michael Whitaker gives greetings. James, the astrophotographer, is giving nice greetings here. Dave Ing. Dave will be on the Global Star Party 12. So hopefully he's showing some images or taking some images. That'll be very cool. Then we have Brett Blake, Rod Morris. Rod, I don't know if you're new to us or not, but thanks for chatting with us. Rod says, from a deep field to a shallow meadow. That sounds very philosophical. It's cool. Nicholas Rocha is watching. Let's see. And who else? Got a nice chat going on here. Wolfgang from Germany checking in. That's great. Book Davies is with us. That's awesome. Tim Myers, if I didn't already recognize him. Aaron Thompson. And who else? I think I might be missing somebody here. Paul Maesters is there with us. That's cool. Gary Palmer from the UK. He'll be on our Star Party as well.
It's already late there.
I know. That dude just...
He'll be up till 4 o'clock in the morning again.
Yeah, he will. I mean, we'll probably watch the sunrise with him. So, Keenan Lucas is watching here. He says, I love the creative star backgrounds of the participants. Yes. Stephen Hauser is watching. I seem to spend more time thinking about doing AP than actually doing it. It's a very mental thing, so.
Well, there's a lot of study. There's a lot of, for every hour of observing, you probably spend 10 hours of thinking about it.
That's true. That's very true. Christy White is watching here. Very important person. Good job. Thanks. That's great. Brett Blake says, I couldn't get plain vanilla ASCOM to work. Poth did the trick right off the bat. Interesting. I wonder what the deal is on that.
I'm not sure what he means by that.
Yeah, CFox0011 is watching. It sounds like a spy code name or something. Mike Wiesner. Scott, when Kelly Beatty completes his series, you should combine them and release as a single video. think I'm going to put them on a 33 and a third LP, double jacket, that would be cool. No, it's very good. I can do that. We can do that. Jim Norwood, since they both start at the same time, I won't know whether to watch the Star Party tonight or the presidential debate. I will know which one is more enjoyable, though. Well,
No politics.
no politics.
No politics.
We're not going there.
Don't go there.
Kanan wants to know, what time is the Global Star Party? Kanan, it's going to start at 8 p.m. Central Time in the USA, which is, I think, 1 o'clock in the morning UT, something like that. Michael Whitaker, I can't get my spacing with the Canon M50 with a flattener. I'm going to have to buy a different camera. Things we have to do for the hobby.
That is something that we should probably talk about, is using DSLRs with our field flattener focal reducers,
Sure.
the spacing and requirements.
Yeah, that's always a question, isn't it? Wade Prunty, Explore Scientific. Scott, I just got my telescope platform completed in my backyard. Do you know when the new Explore Scientific portable observatories are going to be released? And what will they cost? Actually, you can see them on our website. They're called Pulsar Domes. I will put a link to them on here.
Is he talking about that, or is he talking about the tent?
I don't know. What are yeah, what are you talking about?
Tent's a lot more portable. I don't know if those pulsar domes are portable.
Well, they're portable if 5 guys pick it up.
Yeah.
Okay, there's the difference between portable and transportable. All right, I'm going to take the portable one as the tent.
And
We're
luggable.
out from the portable tents is what I think. So it doesn't take long to make them, but it does take a month to get them shipped. So that's the deal. Let's see. Yesterday, my mount died, but I could bring it back to life. I hope so. Well, if you need help, let us know. We will help you with that. And the price on the portable observatory tent is going to be approximately $250, something like that. So that's what we think at this point. Nice comments from people. ASCOM 6.5, Jerry, Stellarium would connect well enough, but it wouldn't recognize when the mount was parked or not. Pa saw that right away. Yeah, does it have a feature?
Say that again.
Does Stellarium have a park feature?
I don't think it does. I think we've talked about this before. Some Cart to Seal for a long time did not have a park, unpark, or track button, but it now has. So that's a feature that a lot of these programs leave out for some reason. I guess they assume you've got another controller that's doing those functions, which is what POTH does for you. So yeah, I think Stellarium doesn't have that feature, as why you can't find it.
Yep.
Or why it doesn't work.
Right.
That's another way of looking at of saying it. It
Right.
doesn't work. That's because it doesn't have it.
Right. CFox 0011 says, being a Mac guy, I'm just about to endeavor connecting the PMC8 using Indigo. Any takers?
Yeah, we have other forum members that use Mac OS. I know they're using the Indy drivers. I'm not sure what programs they're using, but Indigo is a good one. I've read about it. There's is that the Cloud Makers? There's a thing called Cloud Makers that also has the Indy driver. I think that's Indigo. But Michael Fulbright, he's the customer that built the Indy driver. So if you have any questions at all on the forum, just I know Michael watches the forum.
Yeah.
He chimes in every once in a while, but there's quite a few users now using the Indy drivers with Mac OS and Linux. So there's a lot of experience now on the forum with that platform.
Right. Well, good. That's good. Um, Tim Meyer says Wade is a good resource on the Mac world. Very cool. Let's see. Well, I think that the next thing to move to, Jerry, is we wanted to talk about the Windows 10 network again. Apparently, we did not have as much good news as we thought.
Right.
And so you did a bunch of testing over the last couple of days, and you still found some issues.
Yeah, the announcement I made was a little premature. I had tested it with the observatory computer system, which had done an upgrade, and I loaded the driver. I connected to the network with the PMC8 wireless, and I had thought it was configured as secure because I had gone through and set the configuration for the PMC8, and then I said, "Great, it's working." And then we made the announcement yesterday, and this morning I decided to go ahead and upgrade my computer, my
Yeah.
development box,
Yeah.
and to my horror,
Ah!
it didn't work.
Ah!
So what the heck?
Did you make a mistake? Did that ever happen?
Yeah, no, that's to my horror. I made a mistake. That's right.
Okay. Well, I know that
So
you.
what I discovered is um, that what I was looking at yesterday on the observatory computer wasn't in fact the case. It was still open, and I had missed a configuration
Okay.
parameter looking at it, and so it still works with open, like it always has. Or you can hardwire the network configuration settings and make it work, which I can demonstrate.
Right.
Actually, I can just show you what that configuration is.
And we still have
Uh,
the workaround. So.
and we have the workaround that's listed on our website. So I'm still working. I had just what made me announce it yesterday was the conversation I had with Wes on the recent update to version 2004,
Mm.
which, we were all crossing our fingers that the latest update would correct this issue that popped up when Windows made a change. So it was probably a little bit of wishful thinking in the back of our head pushing us that way.
Yeah.
And the fact that it immediately worked for me on the observatory with the upgraded system said, "Oh,
Yeah. It's fixed.
it's fixed." So I was happy, but I was waiting to upgrade mine, of course, and then that's what happened this morning. I upgraded my computer and I discovered that it was not the case. So we're still working on it. We have instructions. There's another workaround we're working on right now that we haven't finished that I hope to get done soon. But there's ways to make it work, and it's a low number or low amount of population in our customer base that's going to run into this anyway.
Less than 5 people that was really affected by this so far.
So
So.
far, right?
Paul Macers wants to point out that Explore. What did he say? He said not updating Windows is also an option. I know
Right.
people use like Windows like forever ago, because they just don't want to run into situations.
Yeah, Windows 7 was really popular. Windows XP was really a good version of Windows. But you can always roll back the change also. So if
Yep.
you can roll back to a change that's before the issue, then that's an option also. There's one other thing I wanted to talk about, Scott, about the firmware.
Sure.
The last version of the firmware, 90, I think it was 1517 for the Exos 2 and 1618 for the G11. I did an update that corrected an issue, and I threw in another thing in there that didn't work. It was a motor current. So all the previous versions of the firmware had a constant motor current setting for the PMC8 system. It was either 900 or 700 for the XS2, or I guess 700 for the IXS 100 and 900 for the G11 and 700 for the PMC8. But I decided to go ahead and throw in order to save more battery for the systems, is to set the tracking motor current down lower, and then only have the high current when it's slewed, when you needed it. So I put that change in thinking that it was working. I had tested it and thought it was working. Again, just like this Windows fiasco, I thought it was working. And come to find out, Bob Hoskins pointed out to me that his battery was running. His battery was a shorter shorter life on the charge than what he expected.
Oh, right.
And so it was always running at the higher current. And I put the higher current in to give a little more robust performance, right? While slewing. So Wes and I worked together over the last couple of days to figure out where the issue is, and I've actually got it working now. So I will be issuing a firmware update probably by the end of the week for everybody. That will basically, it's a battery life extension.
Oh, that's
That will extend the life of the battery probably by about, I'm thinking 20%, maybe 10 to 20%.
very good.
So I'll be putting that out by the end of the week.
Yep. Let's see. So we got some comments here. Someone is saying, if you, this problem would preclude someone from buying. The statement is, or the comment is that it would preclude you from buying updated hardware. But I think if you still use the workaround, you can use the latest stuff. Is that
Oh
true?
yeah, the workarounds. It's just the problem is we're trying to make it as easy as we can for our customers.
That's right.
And we don't want to make it right now it's a fairly technical workaround. Okay, we're trying to make it a lot easier and actually make it as seamless as we can for the customer. So it works fine. It's just a worker. It's just a little tweak to the settings. And I can show it to you. I can actually show you what the setting tweak is if you
Okay.
want to. I'll share my screen.
Let's see it. Meanwhile, I'll read some comments here. Marco Polo says, I'm loving my Exos 2 right now. I'm obsessed with imaging Mars. It's so bright. Only a week until we reach our closest approach to Mars. I know, it's exciting. Tim Meyer says, he's talking to Paul Maesters. He says, POTH allows more than one piece of software to perform at the same function, like two programs controlling the mount, i.e. PhD2 and Stellaria.
That's right. All right, so I know the text is probably a little small. What I'm showing is a network configuration.
Okay.
Okay. And one of the things, this is actually how you do the change. You go to your Wi-Fi connection, go to properties, and then underneath properties, there's a list of processes that use the network and settings. And one that you're going to get to is the IP version v4, TCP/IP. And the workaround is basically on this alternate configuration.
Yes.
There's two ways you can do it. One is you can hard code the IP address. Okay, which would be 192.168.
I've had to do this.
47.1. 11. You pick an address for your host, your IP address for the computer you're on. The subnet mask gets filled in automatically, and the gateway is going to be 192. Oops.
I've had to do the same thing when I go overseas and I'm using Wi-Fi at different places, and you know you have to go in,
Right,
hard code the IP address.
right. So the gateway is 47.1, which is the PMC8. So you would hook up to that network. And then once you do that, you can either do it there or you can do it as the alternate configuration. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then that works. The problem with this, the biggest problem with this is that if you have to go back and forth manually, go between the PMC8 and your Wi-Fi network for your internet access.
If you're
It's a
going to
pain
use
in the butt to go back to if you want to go back to internet, you have to go back in and change it.
right.
So that's the workaround, and it's a little cumbersome. So that's why we're trying to get something a little better.
Thing, you know, sometimes I haven't done it recently, but I often would go to China to follow up on things, and they would, you know, an IT person would come down and do the hard coding on all of our computers, you know, and then we'd go back to the hotel room and we'd have to undo what they did, you know, so that we could be on Wi-Fi, you know. No, I mean, it's not horrible, but not very convenient. So we do need to move towards a more elegant solution on this. So that's it. Jim Norwood says, I meticulously leveled my iXOS 100 last night and sighted Polaris through the alignment tube. Then I manually pushed the mount to the moon for a quick focus check. The moon was drifting across the field of view pretty fast. Why am I not tracking, I wondered. And then I noticed that I had accidentally rotated the mount on the tripod about 15 degrees. Okay, I loosened the bottom screw and swung it back to the north, and all was fine after that. So yeah, don't expect good tracking when your azimuth is 15 degrees off north. We have all made mistakes like that. Yes.
Oh, we kicking the tripod is a prime thing for everybody to do. Once they get a perfect alignment, they'll kick the tripod or something.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to challenge you here, Jerry. CFox 0011 wants to know, what's the median stats on a set of 8 D cells with constant mount running for the Exos 2?
I haven't really done the measurement, but I can tell you it's not going to last but 2 or 3 hours probably.
I see.
That's just a normal amount of, if let's say you slew to an object every 15 minutes. It just depends how much you slew, really, because slew takes a lot. But stepper motors are different than DC servo motors, though. That's one reason I'm trying. They're much lower. Like typically for the iXOS 100, even for the PMC8, the current draw on them is only 600 milliamps compared to 1.5 amps for a DC servo motor system.
Mm-hmm.
So the overall draw is a lot lower, but and when you're tracking and when you're slewing, it's really not that much difference in terms of the draw. Although this change I'm going to be putting in is going to make a difference because I'm going to control the motor current to a lower value while it's tracking. So it could last a little bit longer, maybe, like I said, 10%, 20% longer, depending on how much you use it. So a D cell, or as you said, D cells or C cells? I thought we had C cells in our battery case.
He says D cells here in this.
Yeah, if that's the ones that are going in our battery case, then I would say 2 to 3 hours. You'd have to buy a set every time you go out, I think.
Right. Maybe there's rechargeable.
Unless they're rechargeables, right?
Yeah.
But then the problem with rechargeables is the voltage level is a little bit lower. So instead of eight rechargeable D cells, you'd need to have 9 if you made up your own battery pack. You'd have to have 9 or 10. Actually, I would suggest 10 D cell batteries.
I'm going to recommend
rechargeable
batteries that I got. So that thing works really well. That works really well.
Yeah, that's really the best more cost-effective thing is buy a dedicated battery, LiPo battery or lithium-ion battery system.
Yeah,
It's worth the money.
it is. It absolutely is. Um, let's see. Jeff Wise makes a comment. He says, "In time, Windows will fix itself. It is their bug in the first place." It's true, but getting them to admit that is a different story. We tend to be a little bit more transparent, I think, than some companies. So, not all. I mean, transparency is the way to go, but that's it. CFox0011 wants to know any chance of using DHCP protocol for IP settings.
We do. We use that. That's what the normal standard setup is on the at least for the PMC8 network. It uses DHCP to get an IP address assigned to the host computer.
Yeah. And Jennifer says, I think that's what's broken, the DHCP.
That's actually a symptom. We went down that rabbit hole first, tracking why the DHCP wasn't assigning an IP address, and it's due to the security that we use on the PMC8 is WPA2 PSK security, and that's really what the problem is in terms of causing the issue. What for some reason Windows has decided to block the issuance of an IP address using that security protocol.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Jim Norwood says the battery case on my iXOS 100 uses C cells, so I think the Exos 2 uses D cells.
Oh, okay, all right.
Use a cheap Harbor Freight jump starter for a convenient 12-volt power source. Good idea. Richard Gray says Live PO4 is the future. I'm not sure if that's the right way to use that acronym, but is the future of 12-volt systems, and 2,000 plus cycle life, if not abused, makes their cost seem more reasonable. So it is the convenience of things, though, that really helps out. So
That'd be a heck of a career if you set your system up and down 2,000 times out in the field.
Yeah,
did it over 200 times over 4 years, and that was a lot.
Their whole lives go out 2,000.
A whole life, yeah, 40 years of observing with the same battery.
Right. It's Richard Gray says it's lithium iron phosphate. I've been reading about those. I think that is the future of and maybe even a safer battery than lithium ion. This is iron, lithium iron. Well, Jerry, do you have any more to share with us at this time, or?
No, I'm just
you're
banging away.
You're going to be on tonight at the start,
yep.
right?
Yep. Oh, I wanted to mention. Do you know if Steve Molly is going to be on there tonight?
I have invited him. I have not talked to him today.
I actually talked to Steve yesterday and day before. I did an interview for his Astro blog or Astro podcast last night. That's going to come out by the end of the week, I think, is what he said.
Steve usually comes on if he's not too exhausted. He's that guy. That guy works really hard. He's working basically 2 full-time jobs, running and making his business what it is. He's trying to. His dream is to have, of course, his own business, and we look forward to him being a success this year, and I think he's going to make it. So. Ontario Telescopes has been doing really, really well. Steve also does a lot of communication with customers and a lot of outreach, and does treats customers, in a great tradition that, a lot of our, I'm proud to say Explore Scientific dealers do, so that's really great. It's been a lot of fun hanging out with you guys today. We got more to come tonight, and So I'm going to go get some dinner and maybe take a little rest and jump right back into it. So you guys have a good night. Please watch us. If you're watching YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, share, like, ring the bell, subscribe, tell your friends. Anyways, it's going to be a lot of fun, and we will see you later. And let's see. I'm going to unpin you. Let's see. I'm going to remove the pin. I'm going to me. And we are going to end this program. So thank you very much. And it's just like a little trick I have to do here. Here we go. And away we go.